Have you ever set a goal that you wanted to spend time with family or friends, maybe exercise more, but you just can't seem to find the time in the day?
We have. So today we're going to expose the three bad habits that rob you of that time. Stick around to the end of the episode because we're also going to give you three tips to succeed in time management. Welcome to season two. This is Two Brothers Talking. I'm Israel.
And I'm Eli. If you're watching this, that means you're on YouTube. So please take a moment to subscribe, like our video, click the handy little bell icon to be notified when we're posting videos so you can spend time with us here.
We're going to be releasing new episodes every single Monday. We'll also be pushing out content like vlogs, how-tos, and behind-the-scenes footage exclusive to this channel. Today, we're going to be busting the age-old myth that you just don't have enough time in the day. We're going to expose the three habits that are robbing you of your time. We're also going to give you three tips to put back control in your schedule and help you get to what you want to do.
So there are a lot of reasons to go to bed late, but a lot of us, realistically, we have control over it, if we're honest. It could be because we want to fill our evenings with things that we would rather do other than work, which I could be guilty of.
Right.
It can be maybe we're still taking care of things that we couldn't take care of at work, meaning maybe I had, a 9 to 5 and then I come home and I take care of kids. There are a lot of reasons we don't go to bed on time. It could also be that maybe we're trying to de-stress. We're trying to, maybe I'm going to watch a movie or I'm going to play video games, what have you. There are a lot of things that can fill up our evening time and steal a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that can really take a lot from us, and we don't quite realize it. One thing that I learned growing up is if I start playing a video game and I don't have some kind of barrier for myself,
Yeah.
it's easy to get sucked into like, oh man, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And now I've lost sleep. But one of the biggest myths that a lot of people believe is that I can get back the sleep that I lose.
Yep.
They're like, oh, it just takes 2 days. No, you can't get sleep back. There's no such thing as repaying sleep debt, is what it's called. So if I stay up till 2 in the morning, that's actually going to hang with me for days and days until I finally get rested, but I never get that sleep back. So going to bed late can be detrimental because it, of course, makes us tired.
Yes.
It makes us irritable. It can make us overly stressed. It actually affects our brain performance. It can affect our weight. So if you're like, oh man, why am I not losing weight? But then you only sleep 3 hours a night. That's a contributing factor.
I think that's a great point. And I think going to bed late is open for interpretation. Right?
Absolutely.
For some, it could be 9 o'clock is way too late. And others, 12, 1 o'clock is also way too late for them. I think behind that is whatever time you're going to bed, that really doesn't matter. It's the amount of sleep that you're getting, the true sleep.
Absolutely.
Every adult, and it varies between the 6 to 7 to 8, but anywhere between 6 and 8 hours is what we need. As grown adults, children need a lot more. Like my daughter, she needs 12 hours of sleep in order to develop and grow accordingly. But as adults, we need at least 6 to 8 hours. And if we're not getting that because we're going to bed at an hour that robs us of sleep because we're waking up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning,
Yep.
that's where the detriment is to us. And I think that when you wake up and you feel drained, if you're feeling drained and you went to bed, maybe you should consider moving the time that you're going to sleep because that could be too late for you. Outside of a medical condition, I don't see any reason you should wake up the next morning if you're going to bed at a decent hour and feel drained. And it sounds simple and unimpactful, but as Eli mentioned, it has a detriment to not only your mind, your cognitive abilities, but you're going to be paying that back over the course of sometimes weeks. Oftentimes your immune system gets compromised because of lack of sleep.
Yep.
Your behavior starts to change. You can't think clearly. Your performance starts to tank. So going to bed way too late is more than just, it's okay, I'll sleep in at the weekend. I'll sleep in tomorrow because tomorrow's going to come and I promise you little pitter patter's going to come down the hall if you have kids. Jump in your bed. The alarm clock's going to go off. Your boss is going to need something. Something's going to happen where you don't get to sleep in. If you're, someone that doesn't have a lot of responsibilities, you might be able to sleep the day away. But for the majority of folks that are listening, that are watching, it's just not something that's feasible. So going to bed at a decent hour, an hour that allows you when you wake up to have that full 6 to 8 hours of sleep, is really the best recommendation we can offer.
Yeah, and that's going to be impactful too if you're working night shift.
Hmm.
One thing I found is when I worked night shift, and kudos to you guys who are still working night shift. It killed me, man. That I would have to go to sleep right when I got off,
Hmm.
so that I can get enough sleep, so that I can wake up in the
Yeah.
evening and still have a life and still not be a zombie walking around.
Right.
But you may think, well, how does not getting to bed on time? Why is making more time basically in my evenings? Why does that impact me not having enough time in the day? It's because even though you may have 8-10 hours, you're only really awake. You're not really cognitive for 8-10 hours. You're half there.
Yeah.
And being half present is not the same thing as having more time. So it's really important to get to bed at a good time if you can. And in working the night shift, one thing I had to do is build a schedule. And building a schedule can be frustrating and it's boring. No one wakes up like, yes, I could have built a schedule. But making it up as you go is a great way to spend a vacation. It's a great way to spend, some free time. I'm one of those. I like to have some planning in my vacations, but I also like to have some free time just so I can do whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's a great way to have a vacation day where I get to go places I may not otherwise go. I get to explore coffee shops. I love going to different coffee shops, little mom and pops. It's a great way to have a vacation. It's not a great way to live your day to day.
Absolutely.
And the reason being is it's easy, especially if we don't have a whole lot of responsibilities pulling on us. It's easy to think, oh, I have all the time in the world. Realistically, if we spend 3 hours doing this, 4 hours doing this, 6 hours doing this, our time's gone.
There it is.
And even though it may be a very loose schedule, setting a schedule and making sure that you get what you want to get done is a very important thing to do. It's easy for just those one or two things I have to get done today to suddenly start cascading as the monkey wrenches start coming in, or people start asking things about it or from us. They're saying like, hey, can you come over and help me with this? And you're like, oh, I still had that one thing I had to do today.
Yeah.
And I put it off till the end of the day, and now I don't have time to do that because I have to choose between doing that or spending time with you. And you have to be able to schedule things. And I'm trying not to get too far ahead of us into solving the problem here. But not planning the day is another bad habit that's going to rob you of time, which I had to learn the hard way when I would have like these days off, and I would only have like 2 things to get done. But even though I had, 10, 12 hours each day, I didn't end up getting them done. I had to force them into my week, which then took away, time from that day, which then took away time from the next day. And it becomes an avalanche, a snowball effect throughout my week just because I didn't schedule my days off.
And I think flying by the seat of your pants is great for in the moment problem solving where you're right there, because it really is meant to rely on your intuition and your experience, right?
Yeah.
Flying by the seat of your pants originated from the aviation industry.
Makes
I didn't
sense.
know that. I looked it up and I found out that pilots that used to fly by themselves without aviation assistance had to fly by the seat of their pants to navigate some uncharted territories. And so, because they didn't have the assistance, they had to rely on their own expertise, their judgment calls. That is great for in the moment instances, but not great for everyday living, as you mentioned. I think it's really important that we highlight that not planning ahead really sets you up for failure from the get-go. It doesn't set you up for success. Have you ever woke up, right? You're flat, your tire's flat because I don't know why it's flat, but it's flat for some reason.
Yep.
You're running late to work. You stop by Starbucks, the lines around the building. They get your order wrong. There's so many things that are happening. Everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Yep.
And it all started because you didn't plan ahead. Not all of those events are your fault, but those events impacted you in such a way because of the short period of time that you had to get to work.
Yep.
And all of these things that could go wrong went wrong, and they ended up ruining kind of your start of your day because you didn't plan ahead. And I think it's oftentimes when we're growing up, we see this happening. In my case, I would wait till the last minute. I'd have a school project that weighed heavily on my grade. It was like a end of year project or a midterm. And the night before, I'd come to my mom and be like, hey, Mom, I really have this project that's due tomorrow. Can we go to the store for the supplies? And she's like, well, how long have you known about this? And of course,
Oh, it's 6 months.
yeah, of course. But my lack of planning put me in a position of unnecessary stress. Now me and my mom are pulling an all-nighter on this project, and I probably got a B or a C, not my best grade because I didn't plan ahead and put my best effort. And of
God bless
course,
your mom.
yeah, she's the best. But we see this happen not only as students, but as professionals when we
Mhm.
don't plan ahead. We have so many problems that can be avoided by simply planning ahead.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head is it starts sometimes in school projects. It starts by putting
Yeah.
little things off here and there. It can also kind of play into our third habit.
Hmm.
Our third habit is if you habitually say yes as like a knee jerk reaction,
Yeah.
or maybe you're saying yes because you want to put yourself in good standing, like, oh, can you help me out with this? Oh, you're really cute. I would like to go dinner with you. Sure, I'll do that thing you're asking me to do, regardless of what it is. Doing that as a habit can really get you into trouble.
Yeah.
Not checking whether or not you have the ability or the time can really get you into some hot water. I can tell you that it's easy to overcommit yourself, especially if you lack either understanding or knowledge of what you're going to be doing. Like, oh, I'll figure it out as I go is
Yeah.
one of the biggest proponents to people failing at something. I'll
Absolutely.
figure it out as I go. And if you just fill your day with anything that comes along, it's like trying to, make a cake and just figuring out the ingredients as you go. No one would do that. Like if you're gonna make a cake, you get the ingredients together, you
Read
make
the
sure you're ready to go, you
instructions.
read the instructions. But it's detrimental to us if we just say yes to
Yeah.
everything that comes along. And I had to learn that when I was younger because I had school and then I had a job afterward,
Yeah.
and then people would ask me to go here and go here and do this, and it got to the point where I just was overwhelmed all the
Mhm.
time. And at the time, I had a youth pastor who was talking to me. He said, Eli, and he was kind of joking around, but at the same time, he was trying to help me. I was like, it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay to tell people, hey, I can't do that. And it may come a little difficult to others, and depending on how much we may either want to please that person or maybe
Mhm.
we don't want to sound like we're not willing to help.
Yeah.
And that I think just comes in the communication, which we'll get into in our tips on how to beat these habits. But one of the bad habits we can have is just saying yes
Yeah.
and just trying to carry everything that is put on our plate.
I think that one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone tells me they can do something, but then at the last minute they tell me they can't.
Yep.
Or after the deadline passes, they tell me they can't. I'm a huge advocate for saying no when you simply just don't have the capacity or the ability to take it on. For me,
Yeah.
it shows maturity.
Yep.
It shows that you're planning ahead, that you respect me, you respect my time, and you value the time that we both have in our day and that there's forethought in that. So when you say no instead of saying yes, it helps both parties. When you say yes, when you really should be saying no, that adds unnecessary stress to both of our lives because now we're both robbing ourselves of not only time, but happiness and sanity.
Yeah, and it can really put you in a bad spot. Let's say you say, "Hey, can you make it to dinner on Saturday at 12?"
Yep.
And I know I can't. So I say yes because of course I want to spend time with you. And
Mhm.
then, I have to cancel later on. That's going to build the reputation on my side that I'm either A, unreliable, at best
Mhm.
I'm unreliable,
At best.
or worst, I don't care about you. Your commitment is not as important to me as whatever it is I replace it with,
Mm.
which is just, bad all around.
Yep.
So in trying to please you, I'm actually kind of shooting myself in the foot.
And I think that's so crucial to know as you're growing, if you're a young professional and you're looking for ways to really build a strong, reliable brand, be okay with saying no. We'll get into some tips right now, but that's one thing that can ruin a brand and really circumvent any work you're putting in to trying to build reliability, credibility, and just that trust factor.
Yeah.
So we raised three bad habits, really problems for what's getting in your way, what's robbing you of your time. Now we're going to give you three tips that we've used in our lives that we recommend using in yours to help you get done what you want to get done. Now, tip one is setting a consistent going to bed routine and time. Now, can I just say, for those that can operate on less than the 6 to 8 hours of sleep at 100%,
God
and
bless you.
yeah, really, hats off to you. I can't do that. If you're like me, I need that 6 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're a parent, you're a working student, heck, even just a full time job working person with responsibilities, you might find this is asking a lot. And it is.
Yeah.
It's asking you to take responsibility, take stock of what's going on in your life, and build a healthy schedule, build a healthy time budget, as we often call it, to maximize the time that you have. We all have 24 hours in a day, but how you use that time while making sure you still get that 6 to 8 hours of sleep, that's up to you.
Hmm.
Now, for those that are saying right now as well, I have X amount of kids. I'm a single parent. I am going to school. I am working full time. I'm juggling jobs. I barely have time to sit down. You're asking me to put 6 to 8 hours aside for sleep. That's really not feasible. And I'll tell you, it is hard. And we
Yep.
respect that you have a lot going on, but it's possible. It just takes planning. And we'll give
Yep.
you a tip for planning here shortly. But going to bed at a certain time, setting that routine, getting things together is going to benefit you in such a way that you're going to see that pay dividends into the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I had to learn when I worked in hospitality is there's a difference between getting enough sleep and just making it work
Mm,
and actually being happy. Because I would go to bed and I would say this is the only time I have, and
yeah.
that would be my life, and I would be awake. But I remember you guys giving me stories that I was always cranky. I was always on a short fuse because I didn't get rest. And there are 1,000 things that we fill our days with, and getting sleep should not be the last thing on our schedule. It
Absolutely.
should be the first. The rest has to come after you're recharged, because
Yep.
it's one of those things that, well, I can do that tomorrow. The biggest thing, tomorrow is full of the things we're going to do, right? So getting sleep has to be something that is our first priority in our
Yep.
scheduling. You have to schedule sleep first. Now that being said, we understand, like you said, if we have multiple jobs, I've been there. Sleep was one of those things that took me a little while to master getting into my schedule.
Mm,
There was actually a time when I was working a night shift and a day shift, and I went 3 days without sleep. And at the time, I was working at a grocery store, and I actually
mm.
fell asleep setting up cans, and I woke up like 10 feet down the aisle, and all the things I'd canned in my sleep. And my boss, I found later on, was feeling really sorry for me because he saw that I was like trying not to fall asleep standing up. And there's a difference between being awake and being
Yeah.
present. So in setting up time for sleep in a routine, if you have a significant other, get them involved.
Yeah.
Uh, they may not necessarily agree with the bedtime you're trying to set for. If you need to, set it just for yourself.
Yeah.
If they don't have the commitment, then be out loud about when you need to be in bed, so you have that accountability
Yep.
partner. If you have kids, bring your spouse into getting those kids ready for bed, whether that be giving baths, whether that be
Yep.
brushing teeth, whatever it may be. There has to be a partnership there, so you can make sure to take that time. If you're a single parent, hats off to you. That
Yep.
is a tough place to be. But understand that when you invest now in the more difficult, it's going to pay off dividends later, because you're going to be more rested.
Yep.
You're going to have more energy. You're going to be less irritable if you get that sleep in there.
And some of the things that you might think are kind of normal things to happen at the end of your day, you can add that into your going to bed routine or schedule. For example, we know, my wife and I know that we have to get our daughter bathed, get her into pajamas, read her a story, make
Yep.
sure she's ready for the next day, put new diapers in a diaper bag, wipes, everything that we will need. We added that into our bedtime routine.
Yep.
So we know when we start doing that, we start at the same time every night, if possible, to get the baby in the bath. We get her ready. We take turns taking her bath, taking her out of the bath, getting her dressed, lotioning, all that stuff. So the other person can then get things done on the back end, whether it's pick up toys, clean up, vacuum, anything that needs to be done that can't be done while the baby's sleeping because it makes too much noise, like doing the dishes and things like that. So building that into your routine really puts in the mind, okay, it's time for bed soon. And then our best tip is turn off the TV, turn off the iPad, stop working
Yes.
on what you're working on in your laptop. The reason being is that stimulates your mind
Yep.
and it makes it near impossible to go to sleep right away. Now, if you're like me and Eli, you've got a lot going on. You have a lot to do the next day, you have a lot to do that day. So it's important to begin to allow your mind to relax because I guarantee you, the moment you lay your head on that pillow, everything's going to come to mind of what needs to be done.
Yep.
But if you started your bedtime routine, you can start to master those dots, put them in. And we'll give you some tips here shortly on how to do that. But it's important to start with the bedtime routine.
And not only that, but as you start implementing the bedroom routine, and it may take a couple tries. Don't tear yourself up
Mhm.
if you make mistakes here and there, guys. This is all stuff that's habitual. Building habits takes time. But as you start getting that habit built in, you'll notice that as you start your routine, you start getting a little tired
Yep.
because your body knows, hey, I'm doing these things. I'm getting ready to sleep.
Yeah. Similar to the things that you start to do, you build those habits. You start to think about bed, and that melatonin starts to release in your body, so that way you can have peaceful sleep.
Yeah.
So building a time budget, that's something that we advocate greatly. We talked about it in season 1 on a couple of episodes, but it's so important. And that's tip number 2. My dad used to tell me or ask me really at the start of every day, what do you have planned for today? And then at the end, so what did you do today? And this is a question that elicits specific answers. And at the time, I didn't really understand. I thought it was my dad was just being curious.
Yeah.
But what he was trying to do was cause me to plan ahead. And then at the end of the day, spend time reflecting on that. And it caused me to engage in a dialogue and have that accountability. It was more than just a father spending time with the son. He was teaching me these principles. And Eli and I have become accustomed to this style of planning and planning ahead. Start thinking about what you have to do in the beginning of the day or even the night before. Put it into practice, put it pen to paper, and at the end of the day, start taking stock of what you were able to do. Go back to your to-do list or whatever you put it, and start thinking about what you accomplished and what you did it, so that way you can plan for tomorrow. Now it's become second nature, but for a while it was really difficult, and it sometimes can be when you add in a new element. When we had the baby, that was a new element. There was a new pattern to sleep. There was a new pattern to eating. There was a new human being in front of us that required our time and energy. And so, of course, that was so hard.
Yeah.
But applying those principles allowed us to then remap our time budget and give us the best out of our day. And we have some resources available on our website under the resource tab, some day planners. If you're like me, you need to have a planner set, broken out. There's Day Designer that we love supporting on our website. There's affiliate links. If you go to them, you can see some great Day Designer books that you can plan your week to plan your day, even down to the hour. And it really helps to have it out in front of you. So that way, at the end of the day, you can go back to it and see, hey, did I accomplish what I needed? If not, let me add that to tomorrow.
Absolutely. If you're like me, you kind of approach this from the perspective, I'm not good at planning. I'm not good at logistics. That's not my forte. And I had to adjust the way that I looked at planning. One of the things that I used here was Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War. Some of you have probably heard about the book. Says every battle is won before it's ever fought, meaning that the planning that goes into a battle, the setting up strategies, and if this happens, then this will happen. And if this takes place, then I'm going to respond in this way. That's really what brings us victory. And if you think about planning, you think about the things that you've implemented in your life before the child even came along.
Yeah.
Those are the fundamentals. And one thing you know about fundamentals, if you've ever done martial arts or if you've ever done, anything that's building a specific skill, is if you get the fundamentals down, when added stresses come along, you're much more capable of adjusting to those stressors. You're able to adjust to those stresses. So as an example, if you learn how to box, you learn your rhythm, you learn your basic steps. When the more complicated things come, you've already got the fundamentals down, so it's easier to adjust. If you start building a schedule when you're less burdened, when more burdens come along, you already have your schedule in place, so you're able to adjust more effectively. But you have to understand that the planning shouldn't be, I'm going to do this. Okay, now I'm going to plan it. The planning should be part of your setting up for something. So don't think of it as an extra step. Think of it instead of as part of the process.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go to the mall, I'm going to plan what I'm going to do, and that's how I kind of grocery shop. I before I even step into a grocery store, not so much since COVID started, but if I was going to step into a grocery store, I actually went in and I didn't write all this down, but I had a mental plan of the route I was going to take. Because A, I did not want to walk out with 1,000 Pop-Tarts again. And B, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to be as time conscious and strategic as possible. And that's the way I approach a lot of my planning, is I want to be strategic. I want to be effective. I want to do the most that I can do in the least amount of time, while at the same time having a little fun. Like I might throw in like 10 minutes where I'm gonna go check out the electronics and see what the new headsets are costing or something like that. But at the same time, I know that I need to get out by this time because I want to get, home and make sure that I've got the food put away, make sure that I've got dinner started. And that's all going to come with making planning part of your process as opposed to trying to make it an add on after all the things you've committed to. Really, before you commit to these things, make sure you have that budget set up, get those fundamentals locked down.
Absolutely. Now, tip 3 is the one I struggle with the most, and that's being okay with saying no.
Yeah.
This is something I struggle with the most in professional environment, especially when you have a boss that changes their mind frequently,
Yeah.
sets the expectation at the front end, and then at the back end, it's a different expectation, or
Hmm.
just really changing their mind along the way. And what you have to learn that as a professional, you have to have a voice.
Yeah.
You have to be the expert that you were hired to be and be okay with that. There's some confrontation that often comes with that if the leader isn't used to that, or maybe they don't expect that from you. But if you set the expectation yourself as you're the expert in the situation, they're coming to you for a reason. They need your help with this.
Yeah.
So you know your stuff, you know what you can and can't do, you know what you're capable of, and you know the time that you have to allot to the specific project. So if you do not have the time, you do not have the capacity, it's okay to say no. And it's important to note, though, when saying no, give a suggestion or something you can help with. So,
Hmm.
for example, I work with a lot of reporting. So I build Excel workbooks, I author Tableau visualizations. I can help a lot with that aspect. But if I just don't have the time, I'm not just going to say no. I'm going to say, what I can do is give you some tips on how to visualize your data if that's what you're looking for, or clarify exactly what they're looking for and come on as a consultant instead of taking on that side of the project. So I'm not just burning a bridge or saying no just to say no. If I cannot manage that entire project, I'll offer some solution as part of a peace offering, if you would, to make sure I keep that relationship, because every relationship is business is important. If you're not in business and you're looking at this from personal aspect where you're having a discussion with your partner, your spouse, or even a family member, and they're asking you to do something you just don't have the ability or capacity to do, it's okay to say, you know what, I just don't have the time right now, but listen, this is what I can help you with. That's going to go a long way.
Absolutely. And I really like that, you point out that saying no can be tricky because it can. You want to be clear in
Mhm.
that, hey, I can't do this, but at the same time, don't be rude. So you don't
Yeah.
want to just say
Yeah.
no. Uh, and at the same time, it's very important to clarify what they're asking because there have been times where someone says, hey,
That's
Eli, can you
true.
take part of this? And I'll say, oh, I can't because I see it as they're asking all of
Huge,
this.
huge project.
And they're like, oh, no, I just need you to do like one thing. And I was like, oh,
Just want you
I'm
to
so sorry.
proofread this
Yeah,
paper.
I'm just asking you to like pick up a hot dog. So you want to be clear
Yes.
first and foremost on what your commitment can be, which I really like that you brought in the here's what I can do,
Mm.
because there's a very big piece there in that communication is before you say no, make sure you understand what they're asking.
Yeah.
Make sure you understand what exactly is being asked of you. So before I say yes, I want to understand what the commitment on my side would look like. And that's a perfectly fine way to kind of phrase that because I don't want to be non-committal, but at the same time, I really need to know what you're asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if the other person's being, if they're looking in to get your investment, they're going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they'll appreciate that you're looking to really understand what it is before jumping in. And that also comes with if you have to say no, do it respectfully.
Absolutely.
I think it was Teddy Roosevelt said, just bringing a problem with no solution is called whining.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
if I just say, well, no, I can't because I'm too tired, it's just puts off the thing that I don't want to. Where
Mm.
I may very much want to help, I just don't have capacity.
Yeah.
I don't have time, or I don't have the skill. There have
That's
been
true.
times when people are like, hey, Eli, can you fix this? But like, you know what? I don't know how. Give me a couple of days. I'm gonna
Watch a
look into
YouTube
it.
video.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch some YouTube videos. I'm gonna watch something. I'm gonna read a book,
Yeah.
and then I'll figure it out. There's a very kind of delicate balance between saying no and being rude and saying no and then giving reasons why. And I think the reasons why are also going to help a lot here. If I do say no, provide reasons or
Yeah.
things that I can do, and then also provide reasons as to why I can't. Don't simply say, I'm not going to do that for you. Maybe, I would love to do that. However, I already committed to XYZ.
Yeah.
But what I can do is I can maybe proofread it for you, or I
Mm,
can spend
yeah.
a little bit of time here and there assisting. If this is your personal life, hey, can you pick up the kids every Thursday? You know what? I'm not sure if I can. Let me check my schedule really quick before I say yes. I don't want to put you out by missing a
Yeah.
deadline. I don't want to put you out by not being able to pick up your kids all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
So telling them what's in it for them with you checking your schedule is a really good point there.
And I think that when you say yes as much as possible, meaning when you have the ability to help somebody, when you do say no, it's not going to come off as like, okay, great, here's another no from
Yeah.
this person. They're always saying no. They can never help. Maybe they don't know how to manage their time well because they don't have the time to help.
Yeah.
So when you can say yes, say yes. Help those around you as much as possible, but be okay with saying no. We hope you enjoyed our video today where we exposed the 3 habits that are robbing you of your time. We also gave you the 3 tips that we suggest you utilize to master time management. If this added value to your day, consider subscribing, sharing with your family and friends. Also, what are some tips that you use in your day to manage your schedule? Let us know in the comments below or tweet at us, Two Brothers 2020, Facebook and Instagram, Two Brothers Talking. Thanks for listening.